All right, today is Wednesday, June 18th, 2025. The time is now 3 p.m. and we're going to bring this council work session to order. First thing on our agenda is response to June 4th visitor comments, which we have nothing to review today, so we'll move on. Next is visitor comment. So now is the time for visitor comments that are related to city business or have an issue on today's agenda and to provide information to the city council to consider. The visitor comment period is an essential part of local government meetings. Please limit your comments to 3 minutes or less and address your comments to the mayor and council members. A person speaking during visitor comments may offer objective criticism of the city's business. The council will take input related to the city's business and agenda items into consideration. However, in observant to the Oregon open meeting laws, this is not a time for dialogue, but rather a time for us to listen to you. Defamatory comments directed at anyone, including staff members, will not be permitted. A defamatory statement is a false statement of fact that harms a person's reputation. There are complaint procedures for consideration of a legitimate complaint involving a staff member. Any comment or complaint of a staff member should be sent to the city administrator, who will forward it to the employee and their supervisor. Any legitimate complaints will be handled in accordance with city policy. We also request that you refrain from inappropriate comments or behaviors. Examples of these are attempting to engage individual council members in conversation, insults, obscenities or profanities, attack against any person in their personal capacity, physical violence of threats, or physical violence. Our city administrator and city recorder are taking notes of action if needed and will follow up with you. Responses to visitor comments, if needed, will be published in the next council's work session packet, provided that the city attorney has an opportunity to review the responses. Please provide contact information at the sign-in sheet in the back of the room. If in fact they need to get a hold of you, they will know how to do so. And when you come up, please state your full name and whether or not you live in the limits of St. Helens. So please, first person that would like to speak.
Steve Topaz, I do live here in St. Helens. The words I spoke last week were accurately recorded. There was one mistake. I don't know if I made it or you. It says it's $20 million for Mo Forster for the services of investigating. It's only $2 million. There are a number of $20 million items. But we just heard a rather lengthy description of how we're to address the council. There was one word in there that says we're not supposed to. If you look up in the dictionary, the word dialogue, that's to communicate. And we are not to communicate. There's supposed to be no dialogue. So the state law refers us not to talk to you because we'll be dialoguing. One word. The state has pointed out in some of its court cases, you're not to report mistakes that cities make in public meetings, even though there is a physical mistake. But that one word says if we talk to the city council, that's causing a dialogue and that's illegal. Thank you.
Person.
Lee Preheim, at your last session, you corrected the record about the lie that your finance director told, saying that Treadway had contributed $100,000, and you did correct that. I appreciate that. You still did not correct the lie that she also told that ETC did not give you any money. I have seen the council checks. So either she's incompetent and doesn't know that she received the money, she embezzled the money, or she's just outright lying for political reasons. The city is so desperate not to look stupid about your comments and training to Treadway that you're willing to lie and have other people lie for you. You killed the cash cow, and now you don't want to accept the fact that you've done that. I'd like to know who is auditing the expenses of Treadway? Such as when you get billed $10,000 for a photo booth that to rent it when you could buy one for $3,000. I also want to know since this is a city account that you're spending the money out of, how you're violating the RFP rules. Whenever there's over $5,000, there needs to be an RFP. It's coming from a city account. Why is that not happening and who's doing it? The planning commission and the city have both been working about ending vacant storefronts. We've had an vacant storefront that the city operates for 8 months. The haunted house would have been open and has been open in the past, and now looks awful, just like one of the other many empty storefronts. They're not even smart enough to open the vending machine, which is a $10,000 asset that could be generating revenue 24/7. Finally, I'm still not happy about the appointment of the police chief. I'm very disappointed, Brandon, that you said that you didn't want to be on the committee because, you were biased. So you let Russ do it, who was biased, who then met with Jennifer Massey for 2 hours at the Klondike with Adam that's going. So you're thinking that your bias is better than his bias? I don't think so. It was a mistake. And I'd also like to ask Mr. Smith, where was he when the cops were lying about the physical fitness? Where has that investigation gone? Those cops that said they were leaving were probably the ones that were cheating. That's a felony. We have potential police officers within this department that committed felonies, and we're just going to pretend it didn't happen. There are probably too many of them to fire, but there just needs to be disciplinary action taken, and there needs to be an investigation, and someone needs to hold them accountable.
So the city council does not support or condone the comments made by that citizen. The city of St. Helens will not tolerate personal insults directed at our staff. While we remain committed to transparency and accountability and will thoroughly review any factual concerns brought forward, we expect all public discourse to remain respectful. Defamatory or inappropriate remarks will not be tolerated. Next person, please.
My name is Ron Tromlitz. I received the Walker Consultants Report. The council voted on June 4th, 2025, the City of Council session to release the Walker Report. I want to thank Ashley, the city attorney, for her assistance, and the city council for their decision to release the report after 3 years of requesting. And I find it a very detailed document of the Walker's investigation, and it was, as I believed, obtained by most information from the city's records. I don't find that this time was my time was recorded in the council session. I was most interested in Russ Hubbard's explanation summary. I've read this multiple times and was surprised that it required 3 years of client privilege. It contained a large amount of city documents reviewed by Walker. The documents required dates, document names, and content descriptions, a good timeline of the history of the 2 million gallon rehabilitation. There were a large amount of deficiencies in the workmanships that were recorded years after we completed and noted in the pictures. The Walker report was compiled March 11, 2022. The report was available to the city, and the city chose mediation for the settlement agreement. Bear Consultants investigation was critical of the city's lack of oversight during the geotextile and epoxy liner application. The city made the decision not to regrout the bottom expansion joints, which proved in the state groundwater infiltration allowed water under the liner. It was a mistake starting the 2 million gallon reservation in October 2016. Oregon's inclement weather. The Walker report didn't change my opinion of the cause and responsibility for the 2 million gallon rehabilitation. I believe the city recognized their failings and how their actions contributed to the failure and determined not to use litigation, but to pursue mediation. This was a decision moving forward, possibly repairing the reservoir with a new contractor. The core samples are proof that it was time to abandon the reservoir Walker's conclusion, the membrane was poorly installed. Continued water intrusion was due to poor application of the geotextile fabric. The use of fasteners further exasperated the progressive failure mechanism due to the restraint against the moving of the liner system. There doesn't appear to be any legal advice. Inspections was the failure. Thank you, Ron.
Next comment? Have anybody online, Kathy? No. Okay. We will move on to discussion topics. So we have Link as service recognition today. And Acting Chief Smith, would you do us the honors?
Gaston, will you join us? Who would you like us, Mayor?
Would be great.
Officer Gaston, this certificate and pin is to commemorate your 10 years of service here at the St. Helens Police Department. And I can say, when I first came to the St. Helens Police Department, Officer Gaston was my field training officer. And he also served in detectives with me for a number of years. And he is without a doubt one of the finest police officers I've ever had the pleasure of serving with. I want to present you this certificate and your pin.
Angled work.
Yes,
Going
and
up
if-
here.
Yeah.
John, I'm gonna do the chair right this time, so I don't hate these. We're gonna do a picture too. Yeah. Can't see that. You stand in front of Jessica's stool.
Tell me where, Crystal.
There you go. I was like, if you go right between us. You wanna be in there?
Ian?
I'll try to stay in the middle.
Yeah.
I want to block John. Am I okay?
No, you were better. Yeah. All right. Great.
Thank you.
Congrats, Dylan.
Thank you. Gaston, congratulations.
Um, okay, we are on to, I love celebrating these service record, like the service. I love them every time we get to do that. Seeing the tenure of the city employees here is just phenomenal. I love that we celebrate that. All right, we're on to quarterly report for, departments. We had Crystal Kings, we also had library, and we had rec. Do we have any comments? Did anybody have any? Did, you're here, you're back there. I wanted to comment on the 30% increase over 2024 for that makerspace. And if anybody has not gone in there to see like busy doing their thing and their different activities and tasks, that's something to see. I love the fact that we are offering that and I love to see that increase. So thank you for putting that in there. That's
Can I just
phenomenal.
add that that's 30% overall, that includes in the library as well as the makes.
And the makerspace, that is incredible. That's awesome. And then I loved seeing what we actually had going on with all the coming projects for our youth out there, because it's vitally important. We have things for them to do, especially I'm seeing the emails come through for the activities for upcoming summer, which is even more important for the moms and dads that have to work and keeping those little busy. And Crystal does a phenomenal job all the time with our social media stuff. I don't know how she keeps up with it. So the only thing I also wanted to ask, is there any feedback for us? We're still in this process of modifying our reports and, having this dialogue to us. And I think I could speak for the entire council that we're very open to still any changes. So any feedback for us on this, on preparing these reports?
I think the timeline is much better. I really appreciate that. If I can speak for other members of the group. And the form, I think, is super helpful, though. Make sure we're standardizing everything. Getting information you need.
Perfect. All right. Well, thank you guys for being here and doing what you're doing. It's an integral part of our city. So thank you. Anybody have anything else, Councilor Hubbard? Counselor Gunderson? Pretty phenomenal. All right. And so moving on to, and you guys are welcome to stay too, or you don't have to stay either, so. And then we have presentation by potential waterfront developer. John, I'll let you take this one.
All right, thank you, Mayor. This is, we're glad to have Romano Capital here to talk, introduce themselves, talk about what they do, what they've done, and just learn more about their capacity to take on a project such as our waterfront.
Great, I brought some paper copies if you guys want to have one to follow along, just because we used all of our color printing application for the whole.
Dive again.
Nice to see you. Okay. Well, Mayor and councilors, thanks for having us. We're excited to be here to share a lot about, or a little bit about Romano and who we are, and why we're excited about the project that you guys have teed up so well, and the special place that you have on the waterfront. And so with our time constraints, we'll just kind of get right into it. So with me today, my name's Greg McGreevy. I'm the Vice President of Development for Romano Capital. Eric Christensen, our Chief Operating Officer, Nick Cernande, who is the founder and partner of our key design partner on this, which is Slyworks Architecture, and then Stacy Shields, Director of Entitlements, and Joel are here with us as well. You guys have really put together something with special potential. In reviewing the documentation around the framework, there's a really great outline of how this project can come together. And we see the waterfront as something that's very unique regionally, to have access to the river and the waterway and that's not bifurcated by freeway or railroad or other kind of obstructions, right? And so when we think about the vision of how we would approach this, I think the execution is based on the plan that you guys have, because it has a very good set of bones around it, right? It's obvious that you want to enhance downtown, you want to create an active district here, you need to steward the environment and its connectedness with the river. It really demands a diverse use of users, building types, and we'll talk a little bit more about how we see those priorities, and embracing the community vision and the heritage you guys have put together. So as we dug into this and the kind of overall plan, we got a little more detailed as much as we could at this phase, right? On how we would approach it. And so we think that the location demands a design and an execution that becomes regionally and potentially nationally relevant. I think it's special enough for that with the river, with the view, with the opportunity to connect something that's, you just don't see very often. We've seen Vancouver do it with their waterfront. We've seen Hood River to some extent do it. And it's just one of those unique things that you guys have. We think that having an interesting diversity of the type of building suits the community here, not something that's very monolithic, but also that speaks with some sort of coherent voice. So one of the things we'll talk about is having a master developer that is really kind of working on the project to kind of keep some of that consistency. Certainly caring for the environment. It's a close engagement with the river. How do we support the work that you guys want to do along the shoreline with the Riverwalk Park? And that kind of connectedness, allowing this engagement with people who are moving through the site, visitors and residents, and connecting them with walkable commercial, with the spaces, with public spaces, and with all this, right? And then community integration. So one of the things that's going to be very important in our view is carefully curating the project in terms of its phases and the users and how we want to work through that to make it successful. It's going to be a unique set of people and businesses that can come here, from boutique hotels to other things, and how that gets done with an understanding of how quickly we can absorb product in St. Helens in terms of demand for residential housing and all of those kind of things, right? So really kind of integrating that project together in a phased approach that makes sense. And then responsible partnership. One of the things you'll hear about Romano is that we're an investment company. And so understanding the financial framework is extremely important to us because that's how we've been successful as a company. It's also very important to the city that we're maximizing value and we're well aligned in that. So having this ability to leverage that public-private partnership with a capable team, I think is very critical. So I wanted to talk a little bit about why now, because I imagine that community-wide, there's probably some frustration over the timeline, right? And we have this kind of saying in at least in my development team that projects live and die 3 times. And it seems to be true all the time, right? And part of that is the cycle. And we have a little graphic we use internally there about the market cycle. You guys really brought this forward in 2016 when most of the market was what I would call core focused, right? They're not sure about where we're at in the market. Okay, everything's going great in the core. We're going to buy in Portland. The values are high. All of those things are happening, right? And so peripherally, that was a little more difficult to get people's attention because it was just so good in the Pearl District. COVID happens, and we know what happened in terms of that kind of really damaging all of that. But when we came out in between 2022 and now, we're in this late cycle or trough where there's just not a lot of investment because of interest rates. And so you've kind of straddled this market cycle that's been a little bit unique with COVID blowing it up. And now heading into 2026, we're early, but this is a great time because the core has struggled. Portland is struggling. People are looking for lifestyle. The remote work has come since 2020 and become something that people are really engaged with. And there's a housing need across both Washington and Oregon that all of us have to be responsible in how we fill, right? So it's a great opportunity to now bring a project forward and then phase it smartly so that it can get some momentum, where I think we were just kind of stuck in a little bit of a market rut leading up until this. And then significantly important is the work that you guys have done, that a lot of cities frankly will give lip service to putting in infrastructure, but to make the commitment to do it has now teed this up to be very successful. And so kudos to that, because I think that's a huge step. And so I want to talk now a little bit about, or have Eric talk about Romano and Nick introduce Slideworks, talk a little bit about why our team is pretty well suited for a project like this.
Thanks for having us. It's so exciting to be here, and all of us on Romano, we're a relatively small group. We're about 40 in total at Romano, but we're super excited about this project. Obviously, Greg and his team have spent a ton of time trying to understand what you have here. And I was thinking about it. I moved to Clark County in 1998, and in 1998, there was no Vancouver waterfront. And I remember people telling me, hey, Hood River is going to be amazing, but there really wasn't the Hood River we know today. And now we look at Hood River, we look at Vancouver waterfront, and it's amazing. And I look at this incredible asset that the city here has, the residents have, a beautiful access to the river. And we're excited to talk with you about partnering on that and believe that it could be just as much or even better asset than the Vancouver waterfront. So Greg asked me to talk a little bit about Romano. We have a fun history. We're a little over 20 years old as a firm, and we started as a father-son lending company that was doing lending primarily in and around Clark County. And it was truly a mom and pop shop. Cass's brother started working in the organization. Mom was doing the books, and then quickly outgrew that. About 10, 12 years ago, the Romano that people see today really started materializing into what we call a vertically integrated investment company. So what that simply means is that we are an investment company first and foremost. We think like investors, we prioritize investment, and we invest primarily in 3 different verticals: into real estate lending, real estate development, and real estate construction. By being vertically integrated, it allows us a unique perspective that most developers don't have, because we're not looking just at great structures, although that is very important to us, but we are also looking at the investment nature and how can we prioritize the financial resources as much as the physical resources. as I mentioned, we're based in Clark County. Most of our focus as an organization is regional, so we focus a lot here in Clark County, in the Portland MSA. And then we've also done some projects further north, up in Seattle, into Montana, Idaho, and other places. But our focus is primarily here in the local area. We like to pride ourselves on being big enough to have capacity and have expertise, but being small enough to understand the needs of the local areas that we work in. In addition, our investors are oftentimes local residents. While we have investors across multiple states, the bulk of our investors are in the Pacific Northwest. And in fact, our motto is that we like to invest in our community. And one of the things we think we bring to this incredible asset is the ability to attract and facilitate local investment in what you want to do here on the waterfront. So as I mentioned, vertically integrated, we are both developer and lender. So it gives us some unique perspective to understand all sides of the needs, not just the physical needs of development and construction. And so when we look at our value proposition, what do we bring to the city? It's really threefold. One is, yes, we are an excellent developer, and we'll show you some of our projects. I think that if you've looked at them, they're impressive. We have an incredible team of people with an incredible knowledge and ability that they can bring. We also have capital that we can deploy, specifically local capital that wants to be deployed here in the local area. But I think the other value proposition that we bring is that we have a structure that will enable residents in the local area here in St. Helens to be able to invest in their waterfront. And we want to encourage that. We want to have a vehicle by which local people can say, I'm a part of this. I'm invested. I don't just go and enjoy, but I'm actually invested in the waterfront. So we're excited about bringing that aspect of it. As I mentioned, and you can see we have a great team, about 40. Kes is our CEO and president and founder, intimately involved in what we do. We've spent a lot of time talking with Kes about this project in specific, and he's super excited about it. And then the rest of our team, Jeff, our CFO, Corbin, our executive vice president, principal, also a partner in the company. Greg, who you know, Ted Castle, our VP of Investments, Stephanie, who does lending, and Chris, our VP of Sales and Marketing. You get this incredible team that has incredible knowledge, and you have Stacy and Joel and a lot of others that would be supporting this project. And I'll let Greg kind of introduce a little bit more of the extent.
Yeah, just a few more of our team that would be involved in the project as we go forward. Dan Friesen, who's employee number 3 at the company. He's a senior manager of residential. Morgan Jackson, who's our project manager in multifamily. Hannah is an investment manager and analyst for us. Lauren Martin, who's our newly hired director of marketing. So all of our team is going to touch the project as we move forward in different facets. And then Nick and his partners with Slyworks. And we've been engaged with Tim Levitt, who does a bunch of work with us from Dowell. I think he might have been part of the OTAC team that you guys worked with before on the project, but as a civil engineering partner. So a little bit more about Romano and our capabilities. So we've done to date with all the projects we have currently in development, about 750 million, a little over worth of real estate development, $280 million of actual invested capital have been put into those projects, and we keep a running kind of active balance today of about $190 million worth of people's money deployed. We have investors that range from $50,000 up to a few $1 million. And about 350 roughly investors in the company now that all contribute into that fund in various ways and in various structures related to projects. So it very much is in community investing in our community, which is kind of the foundation of the business. And so some of the things that bring a capability to this project is that balance of size. Certainly capable as a developer to do master plans. We'll talk about Palisades, but nimble enough to be understanding how to navigate that market, and aged enough as a company to have survived a number of market cycles and understand where those risks and where those points are that we have to be careful. Experienced in doing master planning, complex projects, our investor first structure, which we've talked about. We currently manage an opportunity zone fund. So we know the complexities, the challenges and the benefits of that. And can bring that forward. We work on a daily basis with municipalities around win-win solutions, related to projects through developer agreements and multifamily tax abatements and kind of all of the things that go with public-private interaction around land development. So, and we're really well positioned with capital at the ready, having navigated smartly through the current downturn we're in without a bunch of what I would call baggage, which is kind of buildings that we can't do anything with, right? So a lot of developers right now aren't doing projects because they're stuck with the ones that they have. We're in a great spot, having been smart with the deployment of capital through that. And we'll talk a little bit about our project portfolio.
Hi there, my name is Nick Shenande. I represent Slyworks. We're a multidisciplinary design firm, specializing in really architecture, interiors, and planning. I'm a local boy. I grew up in Oregon, went to school in Washington State, but I spent the bulk of my career down in the San Francisco Bay Area, as well as international. As sexy and attractive as it is to work on international projects, large scale projects, I think as a firm, we really find value and joy in working on local and regional projects, because it really allows us to see the impact that we make on these projects. A lot of our clients are usually referral based and relationship based, and we pride ourselves really on really serving and developing those strong relationships. So master planning is not something that's new to us. We've done it both overseas, but we really like doing the local master planning projects. So that's who Slyworks are. My partners are down in the Bay Area. We have expertise in multifamily, affordable housing, lots of mixed use development, as well as some high-end residential and local planning.
Great. So just to highlight some projects so you can see the scope and scale of some of the things that we do. First one is the Palisades. So this is kind of a marquee project at Romano, 15-acre master plan in East Vancouver. Currently approved. Final engineering is getting reviewed as we speak. And so it's planned for 850,000 residential square feet, about 865 multifamily units, and about 300,000 square foot of commercial in a very much kind of place-making commercial center on the ground floor of all of those buildings. So you can see the density here. These are 90-foot tall, heavy podium, underground parking, things that are appropriate to East Vancouver, but maybe not appropriate in terms of the plan that we have on the waterfront here. But it does give a scale of what our team is capable of executing on. And then something that I think is a really great example of a river-oriented project with Riverside Townhomes. Was about $27 million worth of build on what is an opportunity zone project for us. And so these are rental project that we own and rent right down on the Columbia River in Vancouver. And so just a different scale of project and as an example, the kind of stuff that.
Yeah, if I could just jump in, I think what's interesting about these two projects and what they highlight is that we're not married to a certain size or scope of project. We really look at what's our canvas, and then we figure out what can we paint on it. And I think these two are great. A very complex, dense master plan community, or 15 units on the river that are beautiful, that are a build to rent. And that was the space that we had, and that was the opportunity zone that we had. And so it shows that we are very diverse in what we do as a development firm.
Yeah.
In alignment with what Eric's saying, it's really about placemaking. A lot of it is really seeing the vision and potential of a particular site, and then really taking some of the ideas and really casting it out there so that we can get really a lot of community buy-in. And that's kind of what we had to do here with Astoria. Work closely with the owner, private owner, and working with the Port of Astoria and the city to kind of visualize what the waterfront, what the Riverwalk will be like. And really help enhance both from a community, cultural and economic standpoint. And this is a master plan I did about 8 years ago. So right now working with the owner to kind of align some developers to really move it forward. This is the partner, one of my partners. He did early conceptual designs and kind of programming for the shoreline redevelopment down in Long Beach, California. And again, this is one of the conceptual master plans we've done for a large developer in Mumbai.
So just a kind of a sampling of the different projects. These are Romano projects from, as Eric said, you know, I guess King Tide and Seaside is like 3 units up to 270 units of multifamily, some office and a scattering of townhomes. So really well suited for the diverse type of building and project I think that we're going to see come alive on the waterfront. And then Slyworks has a series of projects that they've done too that we just can't take all the time to talk about all of them, but so you have some information about some of that back there. So as we look forward, there's some approaches here, some things that I think are important to talk about related to how we make a successful project here. One, when we first came and met, one of the things we talked about was the importance of a master developer that really was looking at the whole site, right? Because there's broad market expertise that we can bring to the table. There's the assurance of consistency, and especially around design, but also making sure that the project is efficient, which also aligns with the city's desire to really get the most value they can out of the property that you guys have invested in. And it's very easy for to get in a situation where multiple people will start to cherry pick and you're kind of have leftover things. And so one of the things that we would really want to do is look at that holistically, and how do you plan through that based on what the market's really demanding, right? And so regional to market demand analysis is going to be a very important early on thing for us. We always do the market study. We frequently work with Eco Northwest out of Portland, who does great work, and develop an understanding and a plan for how the buildings that we build and the places we make get taken up and absorbed and used. How do we get people in there, right? How do we attract businesses? What's the right scale of retail to build? How do we do the right type of tiering around residential? What are the things that is going to fit the community kind of vision and character, but also be accepted by the marketplace, right? So that market analysis is something that is one of the things that we really want to lean into. And then, of course, developing and discussing what kind of flexible funding plan that's really going to ensure return, that aligns everybody to the maximum value that we can get as we plan through how we're going to build it out, that can accommodate the timing that frequently goes with these projects. I think in the Palisades, we're in it 4.5 years now. So they're long. Big master plan projects take a long time to work your way through. And so we have to think through that funding plan, which is one of the reasons that we bring kind of a unique skill set around the investments that can facilitate that.
And then really, so I was gonna say, I just want to say, critical in that process will be aligning with you all and your vision and passion for this incredible asset you have. Like, we're here to support that vision and certainly bring expertise in how to unlock that. But it'll be critical through this, especially in these initial months, to understand exactly what that vision is. What is the dream that the residents of St. Helens have for this asset? And how can we then help unlock that, while also bringing our expertise on how to maximize that. Our goal is not to take advantage of that, but to really allow the city to maximize what you all have here.
And I think we take that and all the big picture thinking, and we have to ultimately drill it down to a site plan and to a building. And so parcel by parcel, what are we building? When are we building it? How does that construction sequencing go? How does it work phasing? right? What are the right things to start now to get people in? And so really drilling down into those intimate details will help us then make it really efficient for us to work through. And so that's where Nick's team and where Dow engineering team really kind of we leverage a lot of that expertise that they can bring with our team's experience to get there. And so just generally next steps, really this is around an execution of an ENA that we've talked about, and allow us the time to really do the thinking that we need to come up with the plan. We've put some timing here. It's for discussion in terms of what we think is right. And it's while we want to hold strictly to schedules as much as possible, we also know that we got to come alongside as partners and come up with the right project. So the right project is as important as a fast project, probably more so, to actually get this thing up out of the ground. So we're very excited about it. We're very committed to it. We have full buy-in from the executive team, and certainly willing to take any questions that you guys might have now or in the future. So
what's your ratio typically for build and hold and for sale?
At the end of the day, almost everything is for sale at the right price, right? And so we have probably about a 30-70 hold to sell right now. And then most of that has been because of the way that the market has gone. It's been an extremely good time to sell things. And so we've had buildings that we built and said, hey, we're going to hold on to this, but the buyer came along and it just was the perfect storm, right? So in general, our philosophy is moving more toward wealth building and holding. We think that the economics of building new buildings now fit better if you're kind of that 5 to 8 year hold period, just from being able to make it pencil out, right? We're not in the same marketplace where you build something, you sell it 2 years later. It just currently doesn't exist.
I'll add that we recognize that this project is unique because it would be this private-public partnership. And so you all would be informing us in that process. We can talk as an organization, our philosophy on sell versus hold, and how we look at that as how it serves the investment. That's where we're a little bit unique. I joke with people all the time. They say, oh, you're a developer. And I'm like, well, we do development, but we're an investment company. We look primarily at the investment. In this relationship, though, it's going to be a little even more unique because we'd be looking at that private-public partnership and what is the goal that you all are seeking to achieve, and what's the win-win that we can strike in that process. Good question, though.
Councilor Hubbard and I had the privilege to sit with you all before and go through this, so glad to see you back and presenting to the rest of the council. I've been waiting for this, so I'm super happy you're here. There's a few things, not necessarily questions, but I just wanted to point out, I really appreciate the fact that you hone in on the cherry picking. That's a concern of mine on any development, because you don't want just buildings there. And it seems like sometimes in developments, that's an oversight.
Yep.
And so that strategic planning on that, I think that's going to be vital for this project, because that's the last thing we want to have happen is those key properties or parcels picked off. And then we're just left with vacant buildings there. That's not good. Also, I really appreciate the fact that you recognize the importance for our citizens' input in this project, because this city has unique characteristics, and that's going to be also vital to get the buy-in and the support. We've just obviously gone through a major overhaul on infrastructure and construction that has been, it's needed, it's required our patience of the businesses and the citizens. And so having their buy-in and knowing what they're really going to get and that it's going to maintain that, I love that. And also, it didn't get mentioned today, but it is a hot topic. And I know we discussed it prior, but parking is a huge issue down here. And I loved the fact that at our prior meeting that was a consideration, is even talking about, parking and looking into that. So I appreciated that too. So those are just a few feedback that I had from your presentation today. So I'm looking forward to see some conceptual plans for sure.
Thank you.
Well, I'll say this is not my first rodeo up here. I've been on the council for about 5 years now, so you guys aren't my first developer. That's for us. And I can tell you that what I remember with the last developer was that there is a sense of pride with the ownership of the property. And that's what is echoed in the city. So I think that's gonna be the biggest thing, is trying to figure out what that partnership looks like so that people feel like they can own a part of the waterfront, or we can continue to own a part of the waterfront. And then the cherry picking, that was also something that I remember from the last developer, is trying to make sure that it's not our downtown doesn't look like a puzzle of different types of development and styles. And somebody did a sidewalk this way and somebody did it this way. We don't want that. We want it to be cohesive and, really nice. And that's why we've kind of held on to the waterfront for so long and invested so much time and money into it, is trying to get it just right. And I do see you guys are kind of going that direction, so I'm interested to see more. The Vancouver project, I would first looked at that and I was like, that is not what we want at all. I can tell you right now, that's not what they want in St. Helens, but the Astoria project really looked intriguing to me. So I'd love to see more of that type of design when you guys bring more to us, but yeah.
Great.
Counselor Sundin?
I think so. Look forward to hearing more.
I do have a question. When you're building for commercial, do you have, like, this might be a ignorant question, but do you have an idea of mind of who you're gonna be bringing in? Are you building something or with something in mind? Rather than just building something and saying, hey, we got this, come on in.
Yeah, for the end user, you mean?
Right, I guess, yeah,
I
sure.
mean, the best practice is to have had those user conversations well ahead of time, right? And so we would certainly try and do that, especially if it's a very special use type of building. If you're gonna build a hotel, or you're gonna build a specific restaurant building somewhere, the person that's gonna manage and run that has to weigh in on it. So you really want to have those conversations up front. So I would say kind of in the retail special use space, absolutely. There are cases where a building can be supported by residential and have a commercial component where maybe you'll have a little more speculation on it. Generally, we're not excited about being speculative builders because you end up with empty buildings, and that's not active storefront.
That's what I was,
Yeah, and I think particularly with this, the uniqueness of the site and the opportunity here is really cultivating that user base. There's going to be some great users that will want to be here, especially the traffic you guys get, kind of seasonally. And so having those conversations, I think, is going to be one of the early things to tackle. So we know like who and how, and then you do kind of fit them in a little bit, right? Like certain users have very specific needs, and so you have to think through some of that tactically. Yeah.
Perfect, thank you.
Yeah.
Counselor Hubbard, do you have anything else?
No, pretty good.
John, do you have anything?
That's a pleasure having you here. I'm glad you get to introduce yourselves.
Right. Look forward so much.
Thank you all.
You see back there as well. It's good seeing you guys. All right, we will move on to annual report from city insurance agent of record, Chris Iverson and David. How do you place?
Oselenko.
Oselenko.
There you, you can't,
First time or the last time.
please call him David W. That's just,
Yeah.
that works. It's so much easier.
Hey.
Hello, everybody. I'm glad that we're here today. Glad to be here today. I usually start this off by talking a little bit about where we're at and what we've done with the insurance. We're currently still with City County Insurance Services. They are an insurance pool, not an insurance company. Many years ago, companies would come in and write cities and counties for a little while, and then a year later they'd be out and you'd have to go try to find another market. And back in the 70s, they formed these insurance pools. 98% of all the cities and counties in the state of Oregon are in this pool that we're currently in. They have a very broad appetite for what they'll insure. If we sent this out to market, we'd have to break it up, put the property in this company, put the liability in this company, buy another liability policy to get us up to the limits that we needed. City council will do it all. I mean, they do all of it. So that's where we had it for a long time. And they give us the best premium at the best prices.
Is the pool the same thing as a captive, just making sure essentially?
No, it's a little bit different than a captive. A pool is a risk of a certain amount of like businesses or companies.
Okay.
You got it. Yeah. So anyway, we looked at this renewal. It's up a little bit over last year. It's up about 6%. We agreed with most of the lines of coverage in this first box on the premium comparison. We did not agree with the property coverage, the premium. That's where we saw the largest hit. Property premiums are going up across the board, you know, because you've seen the price of materials and things like that. We went back to city county insurances. In fact, we were still talking to them about 2 hours ago about this. We couldn't get them to budge or to come down on that number. We have seen some increases in the amount of insurance that we buy to replace these properties. They've all gone up, like reservoirs right now are crazy expensive. I'm sure you guys are probably all aware of that. Those type of things. But overall, the rest of the lines, like the general liability premium, actually went down. Auto premium went up a little bit because of we've added an additional 5 cars to the list, so it went up about $6,000. Our earthquake insurance stayed within $750. The excess flood insurance only went up 125. The crime insurance went up about 123. So overall, it wasn't too bad a renewal with the exception of the property coverages. It amounts to about 6%. I did want to touch a little bit on claims. I was looking back and did a review of the 6-year claims history. We've had some big claims in 1920 and in 20 and 21. The last few years we've done pretty well. 22, 23, we had about 37,000 in claims. 24, 25, we had about 51,800 in claims. For the last 6 years, they paid out a little over 1.4 million in claims for the city. So I wanted to talk to you a little bit about that. I went through those and looked at them really close. I don't see any repetitive issues, and those are the things that the insurance companies look at the most. If you have the same claims happening over and over again, then we've got problems. I didn't see any of that. I went through these things a lot and just couldn't see anything that was the same. Did you want to talk a little bit about the workers' compensation and the cyber liability?
I get to talk about some of the good news here. So workers' compensation, our experience our rating has improved quite a bit year over year. And that is coming in with almost $9,000 or so decrease in the work comps.
Our EMR currently.
See,
0.95.
yeah, 0.95. We were 1.16 last year. So
Yeah, so you've come down a lot.
moving in the right direction.
We would not be working on construction projects with an EMR like that.
No.
Say,
No, they did.
I'm smiling back there. You know what I'm talking
Yeah,
about. Projects.
yeah.
Yeah, so we did see a pretty good reduction in premium here for the renewal for the work comp, which is great. If we can keep on that track, we can hopefully see that trend.
Are we participating in any like employer injury programs or by any types of modified work program?
And I do believe you guys are doing the reimbursement of
Disabling injuries, I
Yeah,
think
so-
up to $500. It's not.
yeah, it's not huge, but it does, keep some of those smaller claims out of the lot.
Getting a reimbursement from like the 40% of keeping them a modified.
Yeah. Yep.
Yep, we're doing that. So like I said, keeping up with that and keeping on this track will help us with the premium. The cyber policy did.
Can we go back? Question.
Sure.
So, Chris, when you were doing an analysis of like the claims loss or claims history, did we do an analysis of like our workers' compensation since our EMR rate is so high on what we're seeing as trends? Is there any way we can improve or mitigate any of those?
We can certainly take a look at that. I did not look at that since our experience model went down instead of up. I was concentrating on this. Is what I was-
Oh, look at that.
Yeah, I was happy about that. No, we did not, but we certainly can. We can go and we'll pull the loss runs on that, take a look and get back to you guys on it.
Very interested, obviously omitting any employee sensitive stuff, but just what the loss runs would show us. If there's any way to improve, we should always be looking for constant improvement. That we have EMRs, which is lower premiums.
And frankly, we don't get a lot of questions when it goes the other way. When it starts going up, that's when everybody starts asking
That's
questions.
to do.
Yes, all weekend. I will dive in.
Okay, we will get you that information, Jennifer.
Any other questions on the work comp?
Okay.
Okay, perfect.
Just a comment on the work comp is that for years, our discussion was around whether to stick with SAFE or to whether to go with a CIS pool. I mean, we were with SAFE since 1922 and we had this fabulous experience rating. And it was always that conversation, and they had a dividend that they paid, and then CIS and
They combined.
they combined, so that kind of forces together.
Yeah, and we, in the past, we have done that. Over the years past, we've gone and looked at that and we've gotten quotes on it, and they just, with the dividends you guys were receiving, it just wasn't competitive. So
Do
we
we have a TPA or do we deal direct? Do we have a TPA?
What?
A TPA, like a third party that we deal with our carrier directly?
CIS, we have a risk consultant that works with the workers' comp consultant.
Yeah.
I had one quick go back. You said we added 5 vehicles.
Yes.
What vehicles?
Oh, wait.
I can, it's on this, it's on the premium comparison right here underneath. You added a 19 Dodge Durango, 19 Dodge Durango, 24 Ford F-150, a 24 Chevy Silverado. You deleted the Dodge and added another Dodge. You added a.
Cop cars and then a couple of work trucks for public works.
There's a list like that.
I didn't, I'm having issues with my tablet getting it open.
Oh, sorry. Notes.
No, it's okay.
I printed extra just for that. Okay.
Make sure that if the public asks me, you're adding vehicles, have
Yeah, well,
an explanation.
I printed a whole bunch of extra copies just for that, and I should have asked anybody if they needed one before I started, so.
We will be taking away some vehicles because we surplused about 5 vehicles so far, but we'll continue to decrease some of those, the inventory.
Thanks, Kathy.
Thank you. Cyber policy.
Cyber policy. So cyber policy is down slightly year over year here, roughly $500. I went back to the carrier about that to try and find some additional credits. The city does not fully implemented multi-factor authentication on email citywide. Had a talk with Mohammed about that. The carrier was willing to give us another 10% if that can be done. But they had a pretty tight time frame to get that done for this year, which it sounded like it wasn't going to be a doable thing for the city. But I have been talking to Mohammed about that, and it sounds like, you know, we get that done this year, we can go back next year and attempt to get those credits applied. So overall, like I said, I'm seeing a lot of increases in cyber, and see this coming in a little bit lower is definitely very encouraging. So
This one actually surprised me based on what's going on in society with cyber attacks right now. I thought it would be an increase, so I was surprised that this is actually a decrease.
I was too, because just about everyone we've gotten back with other companies are increasing. And I was pleasantly surprised.
How does our cyber protection like stack up to other municipalities? Like, so
You have essentially the same policy as they do.
they like.
Yeah, in fact, you guys
Party stuff.
bumped your limits a year or two ago, and which to me was very smart, because we're seeing bigger and bigger and bigger cyber claims there all the time. So PUD was another one that did it. So
The opportunity to improve there for the 10% is implementing the multi-factor authentication.
and I think Mohammed is working towards that, and
yeah, and I share with Carrie too, all of the preventative measures you guys are taking as far as monitoring and things through your IT contractor, and that of course, again, reflects in premium reduction. So we're doing a good job there as well.
since there was a fairly substantial increase this year, 6% doesn't sound like a lot, but when you take that, it equates to about $41,000 to $42,000. I went and got some deductible options. Let me pass these out right now. It kind of gives you some ideas. This is only on your general liability and your auto liability. Your general and auto liability are totaling $392,476. We currently have a zero deductible. So in other words, you have first dollar coverage. If somebody sues you, falls down and trips, something like that, you run into somebody in a car, you have an EPLI claim, you have a zero deductible. If we change that and we went with a $2,500 deductible, and that would be per claim, you could save up to $30,352 a year. If we bumped it to a $5,000 deductible, you could save up to $52,591. And when I say saved, I put a question mark behind that, because it's going to be completely dependent on how many claims that you have. So I went down and ran the number of claims you've had for the last 6 years, or excuse me, 5 years. And it shows you how many claims you had, so you can sit and do the math. Now, in a good claims year where you don't have a lot of claims, you're gonna come out ahead. But if you have a catastrophic year, if somebody hits a school bus, if you got 30 claims, you could, you could blow through that amount, blow through that savings and it costs you more. But I wanted to throw that out for your consideration. I don't expect you to make a decision right now, but it's certainly something I would encourage you to talk about and let us know before July 1st if you can, if it's something you're interested in at all.
Zero deductible now.
Zero deductible. Yeah, they pay first dollar. So, that's about all we have this year. Staff's been great to work with. They're getting responsive. They give us what we need to do our jobs, and we really appreciate that. I'd be happy to talk to any of you guys about claims. Like I said, I ran all those claims reports and I've actually got them right here. We probably should not discuss them in an open session. But I'm happy to talk to any of you or come to an executive session if your attorney wants me to do that and discuss those with you.
I have a couple more questions.
Okay.
Okay, so I had a couple of questions based on risk services and prevention. So do you guys have any additional risk mitigation services for like training, inspections that we are not capitalizing on that we would or you would recommend us as a city or for staff? Usually there's free services.
There is free services through CIS, and you guys have taken advantage of some of those services. We used to have I'm sorry, Kathy, what was the name of the committee?
The Executive Risk Management.
Executive Risk Management Committee. We used to have that and we used to meet quarterly and we tried to, I was a part of that. And we tried to do the 100 best companies or cities and things like that and comply with all those, stipulations that they had to do it. And we were that, and those kind of fell by the wayside. They kind of softened up because the risk manager for CIS kind of backed off on that. And I don't know why they don't do it anymore, but they are available to us if we want to do that.
Based on your experience during that period of time when we were participating in those, did you find them as a benefit regarding any type of insurance premiums or cost reduction to the city?
I think you guys do a pretty doggone good job without them. I think there are times that they're really needed. If you're seeing yourself having repetitive back injuries over and over again, I remember one year we had a guy that got in like 4 accidents. So we ended up sent him to a driving school. Yeah, some things like that. But Mayor, you guys do a pretty doggone good job. You really do.
Well, that would, I guess, go along with my other question is high risk areas besides obviously law enforcement. Is there any specific departments or operations that are high risk that you think that we maybe need to be looking at our protocols with?
Well, the only thing you just hit on it, the police department gets beat up on all the time. But it's not just our cities. I've talked to city county insurance services many times about it. We are no worse than any other city. In fact, in a lot of ways, we're better. We had some issues, and I believe a couple of them are still ongoing, so we probably shouldn't discuss them in depth here, but we had some issues, and I think those issues were addressed. You're probably very well aware of them. But no, I haven't seen any issues that are the same issue being repetitive. I just haven't seen it. The auto accidents, they seem to get in, the police department, puts a lot of miles on cars. And so they can get into a few auto accidents, things like that.
My last question is on our current liability policy. Do we adequately, based on your experience, are we adequately covered for the large scale events we have like Halloween Town, 4th of July? Are we adequately covered?
Insurance agent, and I'm sure your attorney will agree with me. Insurance agents are never supposed to say you're adequately
I get
adequately covered.
But you've also been here for a long
I
time.
know. You've got 10 million in liability coverage. They used to offer another 10 million and it was ridiculously cheap. And you guys took advantage of that and they quit doing it. I have not been out for years looking to see if we can buy you another 10 million somewhere else. CIS won't offer it. So, are you adequately covered? I have not. The largest claim I've ever heard of was a little over 8 million. That was the largest claim I ever heard of. And that was a claim over, it's either in Hillsborough or Forest Grove. So, I feel pretty comfortable saying you know, but you never know what's gonna happen tomorrow.
That's all my questions. Does anybody have?
Is that a blanket coverage for all events, or can you specifically say that you have a policy for one event?
It's a liability policy, covers just about every liability situation there is. And this liability policy is a little bit different because this liability policy is all encompassing. It's all one lump. We used to have to get like your general liability here, your employment practices liability here, your auto liability here, but this is all kind of lumped together in one policy, Russ. So you've got 10 million in limits.
Guys for being here. Thank you for all the detailed information.
We'll get you the stuff on the workers' comp.
Appreciate that.
I would like to add that, when we did have the Executive Risk Management Committee, we were very active with the best practices. We were doing that every year or every 2 years. And then, my plate got too full. And so Matt Brown took it over. And then when Matt Brown left, it was just left to not do it at all. So anyways, our current CIS risk consultant is reaching out to us because she's looking at the claims also. And she's saying, you know, is there anything we can do to help? And so Ethan, who's also our safety coordinator, the three of us are going to try to come up with a time that we could get together and start talking about how to move forward. You know, whether it's training or whatever we could possibly do to try to minimize some of those claims. So there's some workings going on, but it's not high priority right now.
Understand and don't want to put any more on your plate. If it's an expenditure of calories that's not going to yield really any results, then probably should think about that too. Also, I would love to be invited to sit in on one of those meetings as well.
And David would as well.
Yeah.
Absolutely. He will be available.
Did the math on that. Deductibles. So in 5 years, we have 5.4 claims per year. And so if you had a $5,000 deductible, you'd be saving 25. If that.
Well, and a little bit more than that too, because not all claims are going to exceed that $5,000 deductible. You might get a $1,500 trip and fall claim on the sidewalk or something like that. So
Worst case for.
Yeah.
worst case, you're exactly right.
Risk, probability and severity.
Yeah. So anyway,
Appreciate you breaking that. I like to see that breakdown of information.
I try to make it as easy so everybody can understand it. It just, so, okay, let us know on the deductible. Other than that, we'll get it going.
Sorry.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. Seeing you guys again.
See, you guys have a dress code now.
Okay, I like that. Oh, that's funny. All right, so, that moves us on to, there's so many exciting things on the agenda today, geez. Okay, so then we have a review request from Hudson Garbage to increase garbage and recycling rates.
Time to talk about trash.
Yes.
We need to talk about trash. I like.
I'm gonna talk about trash. My name is Connolly Tumlinson with Hudson Garbage Service. I'm the site manager. You guys recognize me, but Josh Brown has come in previously, right? So the two of us. Josh Brown actually recently transferred to Vancouver. So it'll just be myself and then an ops supervisor that we have out here for Hudson. So I attached the letter that I had sent to John where it kind of talks about increased costs, containers, trucks, fuel. And then our biggest challenge, I think, and has been since COVID is the wage pressures that we have out here, right? Trying to retain our employees and keep them on board here with us. This year alone, we've had 3 employees leave us and 1 go to Longview and 2 over to Portland and 1 at Beaverton. Actually 1 Beaverton and 1 in Portland. So we've implemented a 4.5% PI. It kind of helped us get wages a little bit higher for the area. And then also the county is implementing their disposal increases July 1st. So it's right around that time of the year where we come in and ask for a price increase from our customers. So I also
submitted like a comparative rate sheet that has our rates, Columbia City, and then Waste Management and Scappoose. So a little visual for you guys to kind of see where the different cities land in Columbia County. And answer any questions if they have.
I thought I'd start on this side this time. You have any questions?
No, I just. I can't tell my customers that my prices are going up. I just have to, eat it.
Counselor Gunderson, do you have?
I do not. No.
Counselor Sundin?
I do, actually. So I was looking at, I didn't see the comparative rates to Scappoose because one of the things that I've been kind of looking into is the difference between a waste management contract and Hudson contract. So one of the things that has come up a lot is it feels like the rate increases are annual at this point. Is that normal?
Yeah, it's pretty standard. At least so I've been a site manager here, working with Josh Brown for the last 4 years, and I've been with Hudson Garbage. I started as a driver 11 years ago now. And from what it seems like to me is it has been annual, just depending on cost and things like that. I hope we get to a point where we don't have to come in annually, and potentially lower rates if possible. And I know Waste Management, I think they typically in their contracts, they do like a CPI little agreement in there where it's tied to CPI where they're not annually to ask. So whereas with us, it's just kind of open and we come in and ask for your support.
Are there any options with the tip fee at the station to reduce rates to users?
No, so the county, they use the CPI index for the last 6 months, and they were actually had a county commissioners meeting this morning. So, and that's where they approved the 2.2%. They typically just go off of the last 60 to 90 days, and then just implement that CPI total.
I've heard out there in the world that there could be some cost changes if we separated glassware and things like that.
There could be. So coming up here, actually, DEQ is imposing an RMA. So it's a Recycling Modernization Act where they have PROs. So producers who produce cardboard, glass, things like that, they would pay into a fund that would then help to offset costs to the ratepayers. Something we're looking into. So we don't have curbside glass here, but we do have the transfer station. Unfortunately, that's within the 50-mile radius of the end market, which is glass to glass. So that wouldn't be covered under the RMA, but there's different items. And I think they have 6 or 7 different items that will be added to the recycling option for the residents that will pick up curbside and then hopefully help offset rates as we go into the next year.
People would love to probably see being able to curbside, put those things out versus transfer station.
Yeah.
Just wondering if there's any way, like if we're going to increase rates, can we add something? That's kind of where I'm at with it.
Yeah.
And then what happens if we don't approve the rate increase?
I think we just go back to the drawing board. So that's just my thoughts, but I'm not 100% sure. Sorry.
We've not approved it, but that is a question that I legitimately have because at this time I don't feel comfortable in increasing.
Yeah. When I know the city has had a lot of pressure and stuff like that as well. Budget costs and all that stuff. So, yeah.
Don't mean to put you on the spot there. I hope you know,
No.
I think Hudson is a wonderful company and they do a lot for the community.
We do try. Yeah.
It's my job as a politician to make sure I'm representing my constituents and making sure that I'm, checking everything and making sure that.
Yeah. And I've been a resident for St. Helens and you guys do a fabulous job. I've lived out here for 20 years. So no, and I appreciate that. Like I said, I assume we'd go back to the drawing board and regroup. But
maybe we should test that a little bit.
I have a question.
Mhm.
So I get Scappoose, St. Helens, pretty similar, but it looks like 10 to 15% more expensive than Clascanine and Rainier. So I have a note here. So I want to know what the service or operational difference is between justifying the rate here versus the other municipalities.
Oh, what we do here and what we offer here in St. Helens. So we offer we offer weekly garbage and weekly recycling service curbside. Rainier, Clascanine, and all the county area only get every other week recycle and no yard debris service.
Down on a comparison, and that's not really noted, it really stands out. All right, so that was pretty much it, just understanding the reason for the 3.5 increase. And I assume that again, the 2.2 based on the CPI for the county disposal, that's obviously part of the 3.5 then. Okay. I don't have any more questions.
And I don't know how this works, so we can discuss now and then we have to have a meeting after. Okay.
Thank you for coming.
Yeah, you guys are welcome. Thank you.
All right, we are, I don't see Brittany in here. Do we have? them
They're online.
Oh, Kathy, are they ready to go for the report from Treadway on tourism events?
Let me get them up as a panelist.
All righty. Hey there, everyone. Brandon and Brittany here.
Hello there.
Okay, Kathy. Perfect.
Can't see you yet. Hold on.
Oh, there you are.
Perfect. All right. And then Kathy, are we good to share as well? Can you enable that for us? Or actually, no, looks like we should be able to. One second here.
Is it a big magnified voice or something?
Go. At least it's working.
Wait.
There we go. I think that should cover it. Can you see that okay?
Yep.
Perfect. All righty. Well, it's been a little bit since we obviously were in a last session last, so we've got obviously some great updates to share as we continue on for 2025 and looking forward towards Q3 and 4. We will jump right into 13 Nights on the River, and Brittany's going to take this one away.
So we've already had the first 2 nights. I'm sure everybody is aware. The first 2 nights went really great. We had to pivot a little bit with the construction not being fully completed yet, and we did it on the street, which actually worked out pretty well. I'm really satisfied with how that all went. Exciting news is that we moved back into the park this Thursday. So if anybody's really interested in coming, I highly recommend coming this Thursday. We have a really great band, which is Rock and Roll Cowboys. They're a lot of fun to listen to, and also we'll get to be back in the park. So it's a great opportunity to come down and check it out. We have had a lot of excitement from vendors, and we're still accepting more vendors even as the event is continuing. We have a lot of great local to the Pacific Northwest vendors that have signed up, and I'm really excited for them to come and join the event. We have a lot of great local Columbia County bands and Pacific Northwest bands. Just to mention a few of the Columbia County ones, we have Hit Machine on the 26th. We have Sweetwater Band, Acoustic Flash Mob, and Bridgetown Riot. We have had a pretty good success with alcohol revenue. It's looking pretty promising, like we're going to make a pretty decent amount of money from that. So that's really exciting. And then I just also wanted to give a special thank you to WANA and the Port for sponsoring 13 Nights. Their sponsorship and their support has been very beneficial to this event. So I'm very grateful that they came on.
So, and then if you guys haven't already seen, obviously we've got all the brand new branding for 13 Nights, of course. So this has been floating around in various Facebook advertisements and other advertisements online.
And in posters and
posters, yes, absolutely.
The next event that we're looking forward to is the St. Helens Community Day in the park, which used to be Citizens Day. We had a little name change just to make sure everybody felt included. As most of you have heard, we have taken on this event, which we're pretty excited to help produce. We were able to secure enough donations in food to serve about 1,000 people this event. So we're pretty excited about that. We're very grateful to Main Street. They are volunteering some of their team to help with the cooking and the serving of the food. So we're grateful to them for helping with that. I'm a great event planner, not a very good cook. Don't eat my burgers, they will be burned. And then I just also wanted to mention that we've had a lot of great support from businesses in the community, such as Hudson, Plymouth Pub, 2C's Vendor Mall, Grocery Outlet, Safeway, Market Fresh, Skinny's, Sunshine Pizza, Walmart, and the St. Helens Marina. And we do still have volunteer positions open for this event if anybody's interested in assisting with parking, trash, or just generally keeping the park clean.
And those are signups are available on the city website on the specific event page that's online.
We are also going to be having the Highway 30 Cruisers car show, live bands and performers. And then we're also adding a caricaturist and a face painter.
And those will be free for the attendees. There's one of the flyers that's going out as well. So posters, online digital promotions, things of that nature. And then this just kind of gives us an example of the layout for Community Day as well. It's based on similar years. We didn't want to change too much on it, obviously. So very similar layout. We've got tons of vendors, as Brittany said. So we're really excited for this one. Okay, so moving into Independence Day. Things are looking great for this year as well on this event. So it will be on 4th of July on Friday night from 4 p.m. to 10 p.m. Super excited to have fireworks back this year, and that fireworks show will start at 10 p.m. And they'll be shooting off from the barge in the river. Tailgating is also going to be offered this year. And it's $25 per vehicle, and people can register on the city website as well to claim their spot. As part of the event, we've got a band lineup as well this year. So we're really excited to have an AC/DC tribute band, which I think attendees are going to really love. The Sweetwater Band is performing, and then another new one for the area is Rock and Roll Cowboys. So between the three of those, we've got a really stellar lineup. And in addition to the music, of course, we'll have a variety of kids entertainment, of course, great food, some other local business vendors too, beer garden, all the usual stuff there. And at 2 p.m., there will also be a volunteer-led bell ringing, similar to what has happened in the past for the event. And then here is that promo flyer as well that's been making its way around in print and digital format. Once again, here too, WANA was gracious enough to sponsor this event as a title partner on this event too, as part of their sponsorship, in addition to 13 nights and then Holiday in the Plaza as well. For this event, there's a couple different site plans that we have currently in review. We're working with you guys independently on. But this kind of gives you a good example of the first option, which is a little bit more of a larger scale footprint that includes the plaza. You can see on the top right that those are essentially all of the tailgating spots. So we've got quite a few. This is not confirmed in any way. We did have a meeting, of course, with Public Works to make sure that we are able to use this. So some of it will change a little bit, but this gives us a good example of where things will essentially be. Stage placement will be where it is for 13 nights in the park. We'll have a seating area, car show on Strand, and a variety of other activities and things of that nature spread out towards the plaza and then towards the city parking lot.
This layout is our plan A, the one that we would like to go with. It's kind of enhancing and adding a lot more to 4th of July. As you'll see in the city parking lot there, the City Hall parking lot, we've added free axe throwing, rock wall climbing, cornhole, a couple different kids activities like face painters, caricaturists, some like costume actors, like superhero actors and stuff. So this one is kind of the one that we're leaning more towards. It's making it more of a family-friendly festival where there's lots of things to entertain families while they're there throughout the day. The next slide is kind of the scaled down version without the kids activities and just the food vendors, the merchandise vendors, and then the tailgating as well.
And with both of those, we'll still have a great lineup and, of course, the fireworks show. Alrighty, and then as we move into Halloween season for Spirit of Halloween Town, dates have all been released. We actually did an announcement for the dates release last week on Friday, and that was really well received. People are super excited to see that there's information and dates going out sooner this year, of course, than last year. So that's phenomenal. It'll kick off on September 27th, and it'll be a similar schedule as 2024's event was on Saturdays and Sundays. So it'll go every weekend through the 31st, which is a Friday night as well. So that's the only Friday that the event will be open. But It'll feature a variety of activities, again, similar in style to 2024, except we are looking to expand on and enhance each of those activities, as well as add some touches of new things, some harvest style activities, pumpkin bowling, things of that nature that are really family friendly and are essentially included within their ticket price too, just to be able to add more value overall. Since that was one of the big things that was mentioned in the post-event feedback last year, people want to see more included within their ticket, especially at the current ticket prices. So aside from that, we'll of course decorate Pumpkin Plaza. There'll be a nightly pumpkin lighting show. We expect to have the Boo Bash Pavilion still. The haunted house is actually being renovated right now, as well as the gift shop, which we're super excited about. So the gift shop will actually be expanded to be the entire width of the front storefront windows. So there's plenty to be able to see in there. And currently we also are started all of the new merchandise development and graphic design. So that's going to give us a heck of a lot more to be able to sell in that gift shop as well. That's all on theme with the Spirit of Halloween Town event and some of the other community events that we are producing. Anything you want to add?
On top of that, we are including all of the St. Helens events in the merchandise that we're doing. It's not just Halloween Town, so Twilight and other events will also be included in the merchandise. And we're finally able to get the system up and running for the vending machine, so that should be going live soon. We're just waiting to put product in it until we receive our new and improved merchandise that we're very excited about, that we think will help improve some sales in that as well.
Yeah, and then unlike last year, we don't expect to use the public parking area, so that's going to help with some of the parking concerns. We do plan to have the shuttle still, the bus shuttle, but now that the park is open, we're really excited to be able to expand that direction for it all.
And add a lot more kids activities, because a lot of the feedback from event attendees was having kind of an all ages activity space. So we have a lot of great ideas for that as well.
There's one of the graphics that's been released for the actual dates. So that's going around digitally. And then we can move into Christmas in the Plaza again.
So it's going to be very similar to last year. The date is December 13th, 2025. It is the confirmed date with the Christmas ships as well. So they will be in partnership with us on that again. We'll be offering pretty much the exact same amenities as last year, which were free hot chocolate for guests, free digital photos with Santa and Mrs. Claus, lots of Christmas lights. Hopefully, maybe we'll be able to add a few more features there too. Some holiday goodies, s'mores roasting stations, live bands. We're hoping to connect with some local choirs, maybe the high school choir, and see if they'd be interested in doing a Christmas performance as well. And then also the Christmas lighting and the Christmas ships, of course.
And one of the things that's been a hot topic too is adding, like Brittany said, adding more lights. So a lot of the local businesses there on First would love to see lights spanning across the street. So we'll connect, one-on-one with that, of course. But that's something that we would really love to add on for this holiday season too, just to be able to light up the entire area, not just the trees in the plaza. But yeah, that's the general overview. So open to any questions, concerns, comments based on any of these events.
The only question that I have, it's no surprise that I'm a Christmas fiend. I love Christmas, so I'm excited about that one. Is there, and I know that, you guys are still just kind of getting your feet on the ground, but is there, you think, a future opportunity to expand the Christmas lights up through the Holton district by canvassing and speaking to those business owners to see if they also would like to participate in that?
Yeah, I don't see why not. We would love to take that on as well, and we do have a newly formed relationship with the Chamber of Commerce too, towards Uptown. So I know that they're looking to get involved in some way with a lot of these events too, to potentially help with that as well.
Maybe like Main Street, and Mary is the new I think the contact there, so I think that she would have great enthusiasm. But it would, sometimes it feels like the Holton district gets left out, and if there is an opportunity, I mean, they may be interested in putting their own Christmas lights on the front of their buildings to, kind of enhance the whole experience down Columbia Boulevard, right when you turn off Highway 30. I'm going for Leavenworth here. That's my end goal. So just put it out there. Like
ice skating rink.
I know, right? So
yes, I love it. It can't all be Halloween. Gotta be able to be
exactly, but giving those businesses also an opportunity to participate and be festive as well. So
absolutely.
I mean, wouldn't you like to put some lights on Holton Hollows over there?
We will have a huge lit up
Thank you.
bottle.
He's demonstrating there, okay? So bottle there.
Santa Claus.
Exactly. So anyway, that's just a consideration, maybe. I know that you guys are spending a lot of calories doing what you guys are doing already, so it's very much appreciated, and your professionalism and the stuff you're putting out, as far as like the propaganda stuff, it looks so professional, and it's really great to see that. So thank you for that.
Absolutely. Good to hear.
Just one thing on the Holton district, as we're kind of going into Halloween Town, we have been taking into consideration how to help get more business up in that area. We are currently working on getting a, what did you call it, a tram?
It's a hop on, hop off trolley, open trolley that is not ticketed. So it's just essentially, you can hop on in either district, basically uptown or downtown, and it just takes you back and forth throughout the event operational days.
Perfect, as long as it's street legal.
Yeah.
Which it is, yes. It's not the
Not the
train.
train,
Yeah,
no.
not the train.
Perfect.
Thank you guys for the update.
Yeah.
Counselor Sundin, you have anything?
No, I just appreciate you guys taking feedback and building on to make improvements each year. So thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you, everyone.
You got anything? Counselor Gunderson?
No,
All right, thank you guys.
Yes,
Thank you.
have a good one.
Working on this Christmas, it's gotta happen. Okay, so number 8, review of new pavement cut moratorium on the newly constructed resurfaced streets code. Is your time to shine here. Are you running us through this, or? Oh, you're here.
I
for
read
the
her
question.
note, but she didn't.
Yeah,
read it.
I moved it up on the top of the page. Thank you. We're sharing a packet here.
Informational, if you have questions, I'm here to answer.
Really have any questions? I mean, the initial question I have is why are we doing it, right? But then when I went through it, it made sense on that. I didn't have any questions.
I guess so is a moratorium on any cutting of the pavement, right? That's
On newly constructed or newly resurfaced streets.
okay. So we have a new building that wants to be built down here. They can't hook up to the sewer and water.
So the moratorium requires them to have a waiver from the Public Works Director. And it also is going to be more stringent on the repair. So basically, it's a way of preserving all of this new pavement that we put in. So basically, right now, we do have pavement cut standards, very narrow trenches, 2 feet basically width of a bucket. And once that gets in, the pavement degrades very, very quickly. That patch always fails within 100 years, and then the street was terrible, as you can see all around. So this basically forces a wider patch, which is better for the street, full depth repair, especially on, and it's different for major arterials, collector streets. It's going to be much more in depth. For local streets, not as much.
Wider and also a T-cut.
Yes.
Okay. Does that cost more for the developer?
It is gonna cost more for the developer. The waiver is not gonna cost anything, so.
No, I know that.
cost them, but it'll
Oh,
cost
it's
more
cut,
for
yeah.
it'll cost more for the repair.
Yeah.
And this is just for this is for the citizens. I mean, we don't have a very large pavement budget. And so what we're finding is that our streets are degrading and we can't keep up with that paving and fixing of the streets. And so when we do the new streets, you wanna keep them, in good shape for as long as we can. And there's a limit on the moratorium. So it's a 5-year limit on the streets, and then that goes away.
But you'd still implement the new system.
Yeah, so new streets will come in. So basically we'll maintain a list on the city website, new streets come in, and then the old streets come off.
Didn't have any other questions, Counselor Sundin, Counselor Gunderson? Okay, thank you for being here. Thank you for seeing my post-it note that got moved. That I moved to myself.
With your other 5 post-it note.
I know, right? Okay, so then that moves us on to discussion regarding chronic nuisances and excessive use fee. City Attorney Ashley Wygott.
Finally talking about it.
Yeah.
That's how I feel. It's been 2 years.
Oh, okay.
Ta-da! Moving forward.
Good afternoon, Mayor and Councilors. My name is Ashley Wygott. I'm presenting from the City Attorney's Office, and it sounds like you have been at the last session, at the last council work session, and it sounds like previous to that also, you've requested information about how to address properties that have excessive calls for service. That's what we're talking about, is that I'm going to present information about a regulatory tool that cities use when there are properties in the city or businesses in the city or multifamily properties that are seeming to be using a lot of police services. And what are the tools that are available to help manage these services? After this information, you can, if it's something that seems interesting to you to move forward on, I would work with the chief of police in the police department to see if there is a need for this type of tool in the city. Basically, this is a tool that it's called the Chronic Nuisance Code, and many cities have it, and there are some different variations to it. But basically, if there's a property in the city that has 3 chronic nuisance activities, and those are mostly any criminal activity or such as theft, graffiti, disorderly conduct, prostitution, liquor offenses, criminal trespass. If there's let's look. No, so let me back up. These are generally there's a difference between a chronic nuisance under the code, it's a defined term, and just a general nuisance. So things like tall grass, typically noise complaints, those are things that are general nuisances and not necessarily something that rises to a criminal activity. This is more of activities that are criminal in nature, and I can give some examples. So in some cases, there was maybe a convenience store, and they are constantly selling liquor to underage people. And so the management of that AM, PM, or 7-Eleven or whatever the convenience store is just not, they're not really managing anything, they're just selling. And then it's causing that to become a draw and have noise, but also have fights and just congregation. And so that type of a business could become a chronic nuisance because it's just disturbing the residents. It's causing fights and then causing the police to have to come break up fights or manage activities that are going on. Another example of a chronic nuisance property could be an apartment complex that has some residents in the complex that are maybe having parties all the time or other activities. Maybe there's drug activity going on in one of the complexes, and so there's constant calls for service in that apartment complex. That would be another example of a chronic nuisance property. Another example of a chronic nuisance property could be a vacant property that's just like a squatter house that people are living in and constantly calls for service there because there's drug activity and other activity going on at the property. So those are kind of examples. Noise, I'm looking at this and apologize, I don't have a presentation for you, but I don't see noise as a chronic nuisance activity, at least from, I surveyed many different cities that have these types of activities, and noise wasn't necessarily one of them.
We could add it though, if it was a call for, if you worked with the chief of police and there was a call for service repeatedly.
20 times.
Right,
But
yeah, you could look to add it.
there are other things happening too, so it's not that big of a deal.
Yeah, no, I think you'd want, and this, it is a distinction. You really want it to be something of great magnitude. And the reason is because the repercussions of being a chronic nuisance property can be really significant, and we'll get into that. But first, a chronic nuisance property is typically defined as any property with 3 or more of these chronic nuisance activities, which are these criminal activities we talked about, within a 30-day period. It also could be property that search warrants executed because of drug activity at the property. That's another example of something that's defined as a chronic nuisance property. Others are just repeated continuous chronic nuisance activities that are reported over time. So maybe you don't have it rise to the level of 3 within 30 days, but maybe it's, 2 every month. It's just kind of a nuisance, an ongoing criminal activity.
Can I ask a question real quick?
Mm-hmm.
Is this only, is this EMS in general? So would that be fire for, or paramedics being called for really not 911 type emergencies, or is this strictly criminal?
Well, the chronic nuisance is strictly criminal. I haven't looked into a code that's like for a fire related call. I haven't seen a code about that. You want,
I'm not sure if there is one. I just know that those guys are getting called to certain places on a
You're
regular.
on the board. so
Well, there's that.
Tell them about what research we're doing for our police and, because maybe that would be helpful to them.
We've spoken about that as well, and I just wanted to know if there was some mechanism in place to be able to, I was listening to a scanner over a couple weeks ago and people were calling for arthritis in their shoulder. That's not a 911 call. There's not much those folks can do. I'm just throwing it out there.
that wouldn't fit into this
Shoot.
regulatory tool. Don't call for.
I didn't want to derail anything. I just wanted to kind of bring that up.
So typically what happens if a property is a chronic nuisance, so has 3 or more calls for service or just repeated criminal activities, the city could then notify that property, identify it as a chronic nuisance property, and give the property owner an opportunity to talk with the police and come up with a plan for how they're going to reduce those activities. And so it's this type of regulatory tool, maybe it just could exist through communication, but it really forces the property owners to respond. They are required to come up with a plan to engage, to decrease these criminal activities. And if they aren't able to do so, the city could then start levying fines against the property owner to say, you're not properly managing your property. You need to take steps because you're causing negative impacts to both the police service and to the community.
Don't monetize it, they won't listen.
Yeah, and I did have the opportunity to talk to some property management owners, like they actually they manage them. And, for them, it was an important tool to have that communication because they want to know what's going on with the properties it's managing, because otherwise, if they have habitual problems with those tenants, it is a management tool for them as well. And a lot of times they're not seeing that. And that's something based on my conversations that they would also like to have. Yeah. This would bridge that gap of communication. And that would help them as well. Can you speak, I recall at one point when I started down this path a couple years ago, going through our ordinance, and there was something with chronic nuisance, but we're talking about what's actually available to us currently is more of your grass is more than 3 feet. And that's really actually where noise, I think, probably falls into too. But we do have something already. It's just not of the criminal nature.
It's more code enforcement.
Correct. I just want to make sure, because that's come up a couple of times, that there is a distinction from what we currently have to what we would need to create something different.
Yeah.
Yes. Thank you for that question, Mayor. I think that when I looked at the code, I'd heard that maybe the city already had something adopted in code, but really they do have some nuisance measures. So, right, the tall grass, the noise, sidewalk cracks and things like that, but they don't have this criminal activity that can be addressed through enforcement measures.
And did you, in your research, find that the tool lend to a more of a progressive, I'm not going to say disciplinary, but encouragement when you're levying fines for noncompliance?
I have worked in cities that have used and applied the chronic nuisance code, and they've had really good results. Once the police officers had a tool and they had a requirement that property owners had to follow, and they would be fined if they didn't submit a plan and actually take management steps. Once the police officers had that tool, people were very responsive. So it does seem to be useful. I think the question could be for the city is how many, does the city have a need for this tool? Are there properties that are causing excessive calls for service? And what are those excessive calls for service? Are they more in the fire life safety nature, or are they because of criminal activities? And so once we talk to the police department and get that information, you can know, whether or not this is a tool that the city should consider adopting.
And I agree with that, because we can hear stuff, rumblings, but the data is what speaks, right? So somebody needs to extrapolate that data on the actual calls for service and based on their professional
We've
experience.
seen the data before too. I know it's there. So
I've seen the data too, but presented in that manner if it's actually needed and what that looks like. And I assume that alarms, false alarms and those type of things too, because I recall at one point habitual service for calls, and I think that those probably take 2 officers to go clear those calls, right? So there's a repetitive issue, I would think that that would probably fall under that as well.
Yes, and if it doesn't fall within that, you can also create regulatory tools to help that. I think that the city does have some sort of repetitive, maybe a false alarm, I'm not sure, but those are types of things you can also add to the regulatory structure.
Did you happen to, like, do you have some bones, you know, a carcass of a resolution that we can look at? As far as like what to charge people and, you know, what steps and stuff. That way we have something to look at that we can work off that other cities are
If you
using.
go to your email, I sent like 13 of them that I did research.
That was
on.
before you were the mayor, to be
But
fair.
I will resend that.
I didn't read all of
I
your
spent a
emails, so.
copious amount of time doing research and I can resend to everybody. I believe, I want to say like between 10 and 13 different municipalities and actually what they had for theirs, that we could maybe not recreate the wheel, but maybe we have the carcass, as you said.
Okay, that was an interesting choice of word.
Yeah, exactly. But
And a lot of the cities use very similar language, and so it's a similar structure. I will say that the enforcement is progressive, so it's a fine structure and it's per day, per violation, or per week. You know, the city can establish that schedule of how often it enforces, but then it goes up into the option to seek to close the property. So if this property is really, the property owner is not complying, the city could seek litigation and have the city attorney's office close a property if it's just really a nuisance and causing a lot of problems for the community. I have never seen that happen. I know the city of Portland in this tool a fair amount 10 years ago. That is kind of the end game for the chronic nuisance
I
property.
was gonna say there's a couple properties around here where there's definitely squatting issues that get calls for service, I believe, but they're already closed. So there's nothing that's gonna help with that one, right? It's just this constant problem with those property owners don't even live here and I don't think they care. So-
Somebody owns that land though.
Exactly. But they don't live here and I don't think they care. So the penalties, I think, are what's, it's the carrot and the sticks. Yeah, so we really appreciate you taking the time and digging into this. I love the fact that we're coming up with these action items, and even though they are a bit of work, that seems like they are needed and it's very much appreciated.
Welcome.
Yeah. What are we gonna do?
Take it up to our chief.
Well, yeah, I mean, I think, do we need a vote? We can vote tonight, or is it a general consensus that we can just direct you to work with the chief of police?
Yeah, so just a general consensus to keep moving the policy discussion forward. And I can work with the chief of police to identify information and bring it back to you.
I love it. Are you gonna get some information too, maybe?
Well, I just I don't know how.
You opened your mouth.
I know,
You said it.
but I just don't know how that's gonna be, how you can't prevent somebody from,
No.
it's education.
Crime is different than like providing life services, life sustaining services. So I totally understand that could get really messy.
Yeah.
I just don't know how that's gonna, I mean, I can speak with the fire district, the chief, and see.
I will say that based on my research, I did not see anything that involved fire or life in any of those municipalities, but I also wasn't hyper focused on that, but I didn't see any in my research, so I don't know.
It's something we can talk about for sure, yeah.
Thank you. All right, we made it. Dang, we're ahead of schedule too. So 4:55. So it is all you, John.
All right, thank you, Mayor. And apologies for a somewhat abbreviated report. The last couple of days has been pretty consumed with our server malfunctions and kind of gridlock of inability to do business or access files or print anything or pay their utility bill. A lot of work. Hear that noise in the background it's related to that while they work through it to get this fixed. Just having this meeting was a success to be able to be up and together for that. So pleased to have Vermont Investments here earlier to learn about their interest in our community. I've been working with them since we met back in March, along with Mayor and Councilor Hubbard. And, I feel like they really understand the community. They embrace our vision. They recognize that we want to have public access, that we want to preserve our cultural heritage and, and still have that platform for economic development. To that end, we've putting some draft negotiating agreements around and can be, talk about that real soon if you're interested. Earlier Hudson, Panel A gave a presentation on the proposed rate increase. And I want to, while we're still in an open session here, I wanted to talk about if there's an appetite to relook at that approval of that rate increase. There's some other variables that we might want to consider, and it's not wanting to negotiate on the dais here, but part of their franchise agreement, they pick up cash services for no charge to the city. And, you know, maybe we could add a couple things that would reduce expense, maybe in the downtown here, for more garbage services. Just putting some options out there other than saying no. So, and I would certainly have to talk to Kelly between that. Not putting you on the spot, so. I'm looking forward to the proclamation tonight, supporting our local businesses and residents. We can do a small food thing here, read the proclamation. Yes. Businesses, local residents that live down here through this project for the most of, 2.5 years has been really impacting on all their lives, and hopefully it's now positive. It hasn't been along the way at times, especially with blocked access and parking limitations and things like that. So we're good time to start celebrating. Last week, I went to the senior center mostly just to attend, to talk about the lease renewal and just be there to listen to what they have to say. And they were very, very pleased I was there. They're in a real pinch financially to make ends meet, as we all know, over the past year or so. And they thought it would be a great idea if someone from the council or some city representative would be the senior center liaison. So it's something for you to talk among yourselves if you want to consider you. I know they'd love to have you. Their meetings are now the second Thursday evening at 5:30. So conflicts with maybe one or two more 13 nights, but pause and talk about that.
I just don't know about bandwidth.
Yeah.
That's the hard part. I mean, I know Gunnarsson wants to be on another committee.
If there's no council interested in doing that, I would volunteer to do that. So that's once a month meeting. So if you would want
Do
me
you
to,
have the bandwidth to do that?
I make good things happen. Yes.
Talk to your wife about that.
Yeah, I mean, I think we gotta be cognizant of everybody's bandwidth, right? There has to be work-life balance with everything. And so,
My only concern is that they're still in really beginning stages of trying to rebuild their board and trying to rebuild some of their, how they're going to operate. And so I'm concerned that they may lean on the city for a lot right now. And so I'm a little bit hesitant about it being right now. Maybe in a few months when they've stabilized a little bit, is my opinion, but it's really up to you, John. You've been really attending a lot of things. You've been really involved, so you kind of know what state they're in. So.
Yeah, I mean, I think supporting the seniors is vital. The food program being successful that's the only meal people get some days. And I think that's imperative that we do what we can to support them.
Well, at this point, the only oversight we have over them is that they rent our building. Right? So we're really, it's a landlord tenant. We're not really like involved a lot in what they're doing. So that's just my concern with, with that. I do want to see them supported. Sounds like they have a really eager board and a lot of new members.
Good. Yeah.
So it's not like if John doesn't go or one of us doesn't go, they're gonna
I just worry about John's bandwidth. We have a lot of stuff also that's going on here in the city that needs attention. And so I just worry about his span of control and putting more on your plate, John. That's what I worry about. So I also would side probably with Council President Chilton on, is right now the time to do that? Or should we be more hyper-focused on the things and deliverables and action items of the city? And then when the board is established. But ultimately, I agree, it will be up to you on that.
Yeah, it doesn't have to be me. You could turn that around and ask them to come to our meetings more often and give reports as well. So.
Yeah, I mean, if they feel like that would be helpful, like I said, though, we really don't have a lot of oversight over how they operate and how they function. So I don't want to be too involved in something that we're not the decision makers on. That's just my thought. And kind of, I want to be supportive as far as like, we need this program to be successful in the community for seniors and the vulnerable populations that they serve. But at the same time, we don't want to be running their program. That's just my thoughts on it.
Want to be running their program.
I know. And so are you setting yourself up for something that might be,
No, some communities do.
So maybe it just, what's your thoughts on it, John? Like, is it just
No,
not?
it's a capacity issue. It's an important issue. And it's generally want to make sure they're successful. And if we can contribute, even as the insurance people here today, we were talking about, are we overlapping in insurance? We did a review just last week to look at if there's some, a few dollar cost savings in between who we're insuring the building, what's their insurance cover? Is there any way we can reduce that amount?
Are we on a general consensus that it's just up to John whether he feels like he has the bandwidth to do it?
I would welcome that direction. So
I'm more inclined to have them come to our meetings.
What would the purpose be? Just to keep us informed? Is that what?
Litigation.
Do they need to come to our meetings to do that? Could they send a report like we've been getting?
There's someone there to do it. Yeah.
they do already report to us how many times, Kathy, once a year?
I can't remember if we set it up for quarterly or annually.
The annually, wow, but
There's also the option that if they need to bring something up, they can come here. I mean, outside of an email. I mean, do we really need to have somebody at these meetings? I mean, I'm fine either way, John. If you think if somebody can do it, I cannot. But
I didn't anticipate it to be such a controversial thing.
supportive, I just don't want, getting in too deep there. Especially right now in those early stages where it's critical that they're rebuilding their board and building that really strong and can count on each other to fulfill obligations.
Yeah, on the operations side, we provide a lot of support to the center as far as maintenance of things and,
But it's our building and, that is our duty too, and it's important to the community, so. How much, we got a couple, we got a foot in, do we want to put both feet in an arm or what do, how do we want to do this?
carcass.
Thanks, Mark.
Will you bring back a decision that you decide to do?
I will let you know.
Now that I'm all stressed out.
No.
Now that was like the largest dialogue we had today on participation.
Yesterday I went to I'm on the Columbia Economic Team Board. We had a strategic planning meeting and, I've said it before, but I'm just going to reiterate it, that Paul Vogel, his team is really stepped up. They've become this one-stop shop as far as economic development and really provide a strong resource to the city as far as from the local small business support to the Small Business Resource Center, which we didn't used to have, Grow Initiative, which we kind of funneled through to them so that they can serve a broader net of entrepreneur support. This regional tourism effort that's gotten bigger, and then this, the core mission of just economic development at the industrial level where we're just going for those big fish. And they do all that, they do all those things really well, and we're just really, our contribution to what they do is it's good bang for a buck. This Saturday's Kiwanis Parade, and it was supposed to rain a lot.
I chose to walk. That's what I'm thinking about.
Hopefully they're wrong and we will all stay dry and get lined up, and I will be driving one of the city backhoes, which I got a little brushed up on my skills around the yard the other day.
Good, because we have an asphalt moratorium, so like scraping that anywhere.
No digging.
They're a lot fancier than these to be. So.
That's why they put it in place. What do you mean?
Treadway mentioned the Rock and Roll Cowboys tomorrow night, the June 26th, the ribbon cutting ceremony is coming together. We have speaker list. I have all the details, but most everything.
Question on the ribbon cutting. I obviously, unfortunately, have a work obligation, so I'm not going to be here. So is somebody else filling in as council president? Are we covered? for all that?
That's one of the unresolved,
Finish.
one of the fishing details. Who's gonna,
Not gonna be here?
we encourage-
I have work obligations, not negotiable. Yeah.
What do I gotta do?
You gotta give a speech.
I don't want to give us.
yeah, we have the speaker lineup pretty well dialed in. It's just the actual cutting of the ribbon, all the pictures will go along with that.
Okay.
No,
We'll have,
not without a speech. There's a speech, then a cut.
Please.
And it's not a quick cut. There's a lot of pictures that are going before that. So we're gonna. Good.
Cut it and run.
The council, the rest of the council is gonna be up there too, right?
Yes.
All right.
Hopefully. I mean,
Russ, you can cut that thing. And the speech.
Make a chainsaw.
With the chains. Well, I'm sad you're not gonna be
I
there.
know, I'm super sad. I did everything possible and it just was, it's not a negotiable thing. So I unfortunately am going to miss it, but I was all queued up for that. So I'm super sad. But
Calls, multiple hats.
exactly, work calls.
okay, so
So we hammered out, like, we have a plan for that for.
I'll use the
Council
scissors.
Yeah,
The rest of the council.
For the hair salon at the Avamere, right?
At Avamere,
He
yeah.
knows how to use a.
I also had the shovel. I was one of the shovel ones when we
Yeah.
broke ground on the project, so.
that's the groundbreaking, and this picture will be a picture that lasts a long, long time, I suspect, and hopefully everybody can make it.
You can Photoshop me in.
You can do that now.
Running with scissors or something. So,
Yeah, exactly.
Community Day, we know that. We just heard about that earlier, July 3rd and 4th, with the tailgating and fireworks show, all those logistics are under play. The one thing that's kind of looking more and more iffy every minute is the Sandcastle Festival. The road working with the Coast Guard, it's just continues to be really problematic, and
Can we put that on an action item for the next council meeting?
sure. Yep.
I didn't hear that.
Oh, sorry. Put the water taxi and all that stuff. That goes on. Yeah, put it on the next work session.
That concludes my report. We do have an executive session with some updates, and
Well, I did have a question. I don't know if now, are you gonna be at the regular session tonight, Ashley?
I can be.
Well, I don't want to put you on the spot, but I do have a question in regards to questions on scoring and all that kind of stuff. If that's gonna be released or what the plan is, because we're getting a lot of questions for the application process.
For the chief of police recruitment?
Correct. And then also, you know, for me, I've heard like several things like, you know, me particularly, like I knew questions. As I sit here today, I've never seen the questions. I don't know who wrote the questions. I don't know who sent the questions. I don't know where the questions went from. I don't know if any of the other council members can participate. I'm wondering, can you speak to the process for transparency? Because I don't know if anybody else knows anything about it, but where we're at with that. Help.
Sure. I'm happy to talk about the process as I summarized it last, I think it was the work session of the city, I think it was city council meeting. But basically the Oregon Association Chiefs of Police, helped the city convene an evaluation panel. And that panel came up with the interview questions just based on chief of police recruitments from that they had participated in either for their city or that or for other evaluations that they had done for other cities. And the evaluation panel were the only people that had access to the interview questions in advance. And I think it was just finalized the day prior to the interviews. And then the interview process, each of the three applicants were interviewed by the evaluation panel. Actually, the applicants had access, they were given 5 minutes access to the questions before to prepare for their interview. And then during that process, the applicants were evaluated and scored based on a matrix that the chiefs of police helped. The evaluation panel helped to identify and create. And so that was the process. As far as records requests, In general, there are exemptions for records requests for these types of personnel records so that they are not subject to disclosure, and that they are confidential. But I know that there are some in the queue that our office is taking a look at, and to evaluate and is going to respond to the people requesting the records.
For the interview.
In general, the evaluations, the applications that a person submits for a job application, so their applications and the evaluation and scoring of those applications are generally exempt from disclosure. There are some reasons for that. Because it protects the privacy of the people applying. It protects the privacy of the people that are willing to evaluate. People might be discouraged from applying for a job if they knew that that their material and how they were scored and how they were evaluated would become public information. It could be embarrassing. It would discourage people applying. It could also discourage the people that are willing to participate and volunteer their time to help the city. And so those are some of the reasons why that exemption exists. But I will take a look at those records. I know that I've heard that there are some records requests for that information in there, in the queue for review.
And you, to be clear, you shepherded this whole process. So this was pretty much done through like your guidance through.
The city council asked me to review, to handle the process. And so I organized and would work directly with the Oregon Chiefs of Police and generally just manage that process and did not share any other information with anybody because only the people on the evaluation panel were provided access to that information.
Because I think that dispels a lot of, you know, the chronic rumor mills we get out there. So thank you for shepherding that and providing that information. Appreciate it. I think that's the only thing.
We have executive session?
We do. All right, so with that, does anybody else have anything? Okay, so we're going to adjourn. We're going to go into an executive session. So following the conclusion of this work session, executive session scheduled to take place to discuss labor negotiations under ORS 192-6602D, property transactions under ORS 192-6602. Records confidential attorney-client privilege memo under ORS 192-6602F and consult with legal potential litigation under ORS 192-6602H. Representatives of the meeting staff and other persons are approved, shall be allowed to attend the executive session. All of the members of the audience are asked to leave the council chambers.
Quick break.
Gavel.
I gotta
Hit the gavel.
Oh. Thank you.